I'm sure most of you watching this video will already know that the BBC suffers from a left-wing liberal media bias. But the things that were coming out of the BBC yesterday about Brexit were just despicable. Let's go directly to the CBBC propaganda, i.e. the propaganda that is meant for kids.
Britain is striking out on its own and leaving Europe. Go Britain!
Oh, for Christ's sake, it's Kish Namar. That Kish Namar that had this embarrassment on stage when he wasn't in a London leftist, Britain-hating audience.
Also, we didn't die in the Second... None of us were alive! We couldn't survive the Second World War! Does anyone have an idea? It is dangerous to perform for a room full of people largely descended from people who colonised my ancestors. Like that! That was always the risk.
Yes, he's got one table of people clapping while the rest are booing him. To the point that this happened.
If you clap me off, I won't leave. I guarantee you will clap for 3.5 minutes. I was ready to leave, but now that you lot have started behaving like pricks, I'm not going. I know you want me to leave, but I'm not going to do it.
Can I shake your hand, sir?
Thank you.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Nish gave his time to come and support the charity today, and I think the very least we can do is to say thank you for doing that. Thank you, Nish.
Yeah, going into a cricket charity dinner and basically calling everyone cowards and colonisers, probably not a good move, Nish. And the fact the BBC decide to choose him as the face accompanying the video we're about to watch is beyond me. Anyway, let's have a look.
Butler with my British cup of tea.
Tea is not from Britain, ma'am, from India it was brought. Yes, for your cup 1,000 died and many wars were fought.
Well, that's a very odd way to define if something's British. For a start, India was part of the British Empire. So even though tea does come from India, at the time, because it was under British rule, you can make the case that it is British. But even so, let's assume it's not. It's still part of our cultural identity that we drink tea. Just because tea leaves happen to be farmed in India and China doesn't make it any less British. Anyway, let's see what else you're pumping into kids' heads.
British things, my British things. It seems that tea is not.
No, it's just not farmed in the British Isles. It is farmed in the British Empire. And even so, that doesn't make it any less of a British staple.
Do tell me sugar's British though.
No, it's Caribbean imported. For sugar in your cup of tea, slavery's been supported.
I suppose the 1833 Slavery Abolition Act means nothing to you then. If Victoria's wearing black, that means this is after Albert died, which was in 1961, just under 30 years after slavery was abolished through the British Empire. So to try and claim that sugar is produced by slaves in Victorian times, it's not accurate. In fact, it's an outright lie. And this is why kids seem to know more about our slave trade than our abolition of said slave trade. Which, by the way, was part of our national pride at the time. And I think it should still be. So well done, BBC. You are pumping lies into our children's heads. Carry on.
I know it's wrong, your majesty, but slaves in Africa worked hard in fields of sugar cane to sweeten up your chaff.
Yes, we did know it was bad. That's why we were in debt, trying to abolish the slave trade across the Atlantic until the 2000s. If you were paying tax throughout the 20th century in England, you were paying to pay off the debt for abolishing slavery. But this makes it look like the Victorians were completely apathetic to slavery. It is historically inaccurate to claim that. Please stop doing it, BBC.
British things are British things. I thought that there were many.
Yeah, there are actually loads. If you just go on Wikipedia, in the 19th century alone, as you can see on screen now, there are actually loads of inventions to get through. Look at that. Going through every year, we were pretty much inventing something on average every 2 years. I mean, yes, there are quite a lot of British things out there, actually, Queen Victoria. You know that if you read up on your history. Such a shame as well, because horrible histories actually used to be really good, but they appear to have been taken in by the leftist Borg of the BBC. Oh well, hopefully he'll be at the whims of a subscription fee soon.
British things are British things.
Afraid there's hardly any.
Yeah, whatever.
You know your British cotton vest.
What's wrong with it? Explain.
The cotton's from America and picked by
Slaves again.
Oh, that's not true. In Manchester, we have a statue of Abraham Lincoln. Yes, literally the man who abolished slavery in America. And here is what the inscription says. The statue is dedicated to the support that the working people of Manchester gave in their fight for the abolition of slavery during the American Civil War, by supporting the Union under President Lincoln at the time, when there was an economic blockade of the southern states. The Lancashire cotton workers were denied access to raw cotton, which caused considerable unemployment through the cotton industry. I believe Lancashire cotton mills started buying their cotton from India instead, where, surprise, surprise, we'd already abolished slavery. So yep, more historical inaccuracy from horrible histories. Thank you, BBC.
Your empire's built on fighting wars, that's how your income's swollen.
I suppose we'll just ignore the massive industrial revolution throughout England then. And actually keeping the empire cost £2 for every pound it made, so no. Our income did not swell through fighting wars, it actually ruined it. Our ability to make income throughout the empire.
Your British things are from abroad and most are frankly stolen.
Well, you're going to need to give examples of that, because all you've given so far is poor examples of tea, sugar and cotton. I mean, are we really going to put British things down to just tea, cotton and sugar? Because all three at some point were made by slaves. Frankly, that's just lazy writing for your argument anyway.
Whatever next? Go on, pray tell.
Our British Queen is foreign as well.
It's true, I am of foreign descent.
That's a pretty spicy take from the BBC. Are you implying, BBC, that Queen Victoria is not British because she is descended from foreigners? Are you saying that you have to be Anglo-Saxon English to be British? Is that what you're saying? I didn't know you went all the way to the alt-right. My lord, whatever will they say next?
And your husband,
A
Albert?
German gent. At least I've got a British name.
Victoria's Latin.
That's a shame!
Oh my god, even our language is under attack? What is going on? English comes from Latin, and a bit of Franco and German language as well, but you get my point. Is it really a surprise that we have Latin names in a Latin-derived language? I mean, my god, what is their example of a British name? I mean, I do get what they're trying to say with this. They're trying to say that a lot of things in Britain actually come from all over the world. That'd be fine if they weren't trying to attack British identity at the same time. And having Nish Kumar introduce this and say, oh, we're going to get Brexit done, that doesn't really help me be more charitable with my interpretation. It literally looks like the BBC hate Britain. And are also trying to get kids to hate Britain as well, but we already knew that.
British things, British things.
There are none, we declare.
There are none? There are bloody none? My god, people, raw materials come from somewhere else in the world, therefore can't be British. And therefore nothing is British at all. I'm sorry, we have tin mines in Cornwall. We have quarries all over England, Scotland and Wales, obviously, as well. That's where shale came from. Shale came from Wales. What about coal? We got coal from the north of England and Wales as well. Is that British? Can we at least have our coal that helped power the Industrial Revolution? Well, from your implication of there is nothing British we declare, oh my god, that is so historically inaccurate, and your argumentation is obviously terrible as well. I just don't know where to go with this. How do you seriously argue against nothing is British? Just carry on. Just tell me that my accent isn't British next. Just tell me that.
All our favourite British things
Seem to come from elsewhere.
I've had enough of this globalist propaganda. Does Nish have anything else to add?
So there you have it. Britain in the European Union is now history. I'm Nish Kumar, and thanks for watching.
Yes, thank God for that. We got out. Took 3 bloody years and took punching through the cultural hegemon that is the leftists of England to get it there. Damn right I was celebrating by playing Euro Truck Simulator last night. And damn right am I gonna defend our decision to leave the European Union and leave it in the history books. It's not like the BBC can get worse than that though, can it? It's not like they're gonna do a Jon Snow.
Looking at the crowd, it is a very white crowd mostly.
No, they couldn't even help themselves. They had to point out that at the Brexit celebration in Parliament Square, there are a lot of white people. Almost as if 90% of Britain is white. Though to be fair, wait for next year's census, that theory's going to be blown right out the water. We're probably only about 80% white British now. I don't know. But I can't believe the BBC couldn't help themselves. How the hell did those women react?
And when you say fly the flag, to many, the whole Brexit debate has remained about immigration, and it's not been a welcoming view.
My lord, that was loaded. She's basically asking her, why do you hate immigrants? And when they say, oh, it's a white crowd, it's obvious implications that it's racism. Of course, we have to ignore the fact that the EU is basically 90% white as well. But since when were leftists any good at actually looking at reality? We'd hope the BBC would at least look somewhat patriotic for the day of Brexit, but they couldn't even do that. Here was the backdrop of the BBC newsroom during Brexit. It's all blue and yellow, the colours of the European Union's flag. And the only bit that is even remotely British is a slice of the star. Couldn't be a whole star, had to be a small slice of a star. I suppose that we're the second biggest contributor to the EU for the past few decades doesn't mean anything to the BBC. We are not even an entire star in the EU's 27-starred flag. Wunderbar. I mean, this bias has got so bad that even an employee of the BBC, Andrew Neil, had to tweet out, this is anti-British drivel of the high order. Was any of the licence fee used to produce something so purely designed to demean us? And I agree. Boris needs to stop the licence fee as soon as possible. Why should the British taxpayer have to pay the liberal elites at the BBC to punch down and demean the very people that are funding them? Doesn't make any sense. Hopefully the free market will sort them out. I suppose on the bright side there is a lot of salt, so I'm going to leave you with this Brexit dinner that a clearly Ramoning owner of said restaurant had written a menu for. So, Friday the 31st of January 2020, we didn't vote for it lunch. Cambridge Analytica carrot soup. Russian manipulation of Facebook data, salted beef on bagels. Out after 47 years, battered cod. Where's David Cameron now? Squash and mixed bean casserole. We all know what getting our country back means. Crispy halloumi and Mediterranean veg. Sides, farmers' subsidies, chips, human rights, peas, free movement of people, mushy peas. And each dish presumably comes with its own salt mine. But whatever keeps them on the high horse, fine with me. Don't force me to pay for it. But that's everything I had for you today. Tomorrow I will be salt mining through the Guardian with a few guests. Make sure you catch that. And as usual, thank you very much for watching. And until next time, goodbye.